My grandmother found out her house was sold when a stranger knocked on her door, asking when she'd be moving out. She had lived in that house for 41 years. She raised 3 kids there. She buried her husband from that living room, and she found out it belonged to someone else because a man in a polo shirt was standing on her porch with a folder of paperwork. By the end of this story, you're going to hear exactly how my parents pulled this off, why they thought they'd get away with it, and what happened when my grandmother, at 78 years old, decided she wasn't going down without a fight. Stick around, because the twist at the middle of this story is not what you think it is. And the ending involves a lawyer, a locksmith, and a phone call that my father is still not over. Let's get into it. To understand how insane this is, you need to understand the house. My grandma, I'll call her Rosa, bought that house with my grandfather in the early 1980s. It wasn't fancy. Small, 2-bedroom, cracked driveway, a lemon tree out back that never stopped producing. But it was paid off. Fully, completely paid off by the time I was in middle school. No mortgage, no liens, just hers. My grandfather passed away 8 years ago. After that, Rosa lived alone. And honestly, she loved it that way. She had her garden, her church group, her Wednesday bingo nights. She was sharp, sharper than most people half her age. She did her own taxes. She still drove herself to appointments. So when I tell you what my parents did, I need you to understand. This wasn't a case of an elderly woman who couldn't take care of herself. This was a woman with full mental capacity, full legal competence, and full ownership of her home, which makes what happened next so much worse. It started small. About a year before everything blew up, my mom started talking about Grandma downsizing. Every family dinner, it was the same conversation. That house is too much for her. She's going to fall on those stairs one day. Wouldn't she be happier somewhere smaller? Reasonable things to say on the surface. Except Rosa never asked for this conversation. She never once said she wanted to move. Every time it came up, she'd wave her hand and say the same thing. I'll leave that house when they carry me out of it. My parents kept pushing anyway. Here's the detail that should have tipped me off sooner. And I still think about how I missed it. My dad started visiting Grandma more often. Which sounds sweet, right? A son spending more time with his aging mother. Except he always came alone. Always in the afternoon when Rosa's neighbors were less likely to be around. And he always brought a folder. I asked him about the folder once. He said it was just some paperwork to help her organize her finances. I believed him. That's the part that still eats at me. If you're new here, hit subscribe now, because what my dad actually had in that folder is coming up in about 10 minutes, and it is so much worse than organizing finances. About 6 months before the sale, there was a family dinner. My parents, my aunt, me, and Grandma. On the surface, it was just a regular Sunday dinner. Looking back, I think it was a test. My parents wanted to see how the family would react to the idea of Grandma moving. My aunt, my dad's sister, brought up assisted living facilities, just casually like she was recommending a restaurant. Grandma got quiet. Then she said something I'll never forget. You're all talking about my house like I'm already gone. Nobody had an answer for that. The table went silent. My mom changed the subject to dessert, and that was the end of it. Or so I thought. What I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that this dinner wasn't the beginning of the conversation. It was practically the end of it. Because by that point, my parents had already been in contact with a real estate agent for 3 months. This is the part everyone asks me about, so let me lay it out clean. My grandmother, like a lot of people her age, had signed a power of attorney years earlier, a document that let my father make financial and legal decisions on her behalf if she ever became incapacitated. That's the key word, if. It was supposed to be a safety net for a worst-case scenario, drawn up back when my grandfather was sick. Mostly so someone could manage bills if something happened to both of them. Rosa was never incapacitated, not for one single day. But here's what my dad did. He took that old power of attorney document to a real estate agent and told her that Grandma was struggling with her memory and it was becoming difficult for her to manage her own affairs. He never said this to Grandma's face. He never said this to me. He said it to a stranger with a real estate license, who had no way of verifying whether it was true. The agent, working off what she was told, treated my father as the decision maker. My parents listed the house. They handled the showings, always scheduling them for times when Grandma was at church or at bingo. They negotiated the price. They accepted an offer. And through all of this, Rosa had no idea her house was even on the market. Now here's the part that made my stomach turn when I found out, and it's the reason I'm making this video at all. The paperwork my dad kept bringing to those afternoon visits, some of it was real financial documents, sure, but some of it was drafts of the closing paperwork, disguised in a stack of bills and mail that he was slowly getting Grandma to sign without explaining what she was actually signing. He'd say things like, "Just sign here, it's for the insurance," or "The bank needs your signature to update the account." She trusted him. He was her son. The sale closed on a Tuesday. My parents didn't tell Grandma. They didn't tell me. As far as I understood, everything was normal. 2 days later, on a Thursday morning, a man in a polo shirt, the new owner's contractor, there to schedule some renovation quotes, knocked on Rosa's door and asked her when she'd be moving out. She had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. She called my dad. He didn't pick up. She called me instead, and I remember her voice. She wasn't angry yet. She was just confused. "Someone came to my house asking about renovations. Do you know what house he's talking about? Because it's not this one. This one's mine." I drove over immediately. It took about an hour of digging, pulling up the county property records online, which are public, before I understood what I was looking at. The house was no longer in her name. It hadn't been for 2 days. I sat with my grandmother in her own kitchen and told her that her house had been sold without her knowledge. And I watched her face change in a way I hope I never have to see again. This is where the story could have gone one of two ways. Most people in Rosa's position, especially at her age, especially after losing a spouse, get overwhelmed, get scared, and just accept whatever happens next. But Rosa did something my parents clearly did not see coming. Coming up right after this, I'll tell you exactly what she did and why my dad had a locksmith at his own front door within the week. The first thing Rosa did was call an elder law attorney, not a family friend, not someone connected to my parents in any way, a completely independent lawyer she found through her church's community board. The lawyer looked at everything in about 20 minutes and said the words that changed the entire trajectory of this story. This power of attorney was misused. This may be elder financial abuse. And depending on what your son told the buyers and the agent, potentially fraud. Here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize about power of attorney documents. They don't override the actual owner's rights unless the specific conditions in the document are met. If the document says it only activates upon incapacitation, and the person was never actually incapacitated, then legally, the document was never valid to use in the first place. My father hadn't just made a bad ethical choice. He had potentially committed fraud against his own mother. The lawyer filed to have the sale investigated and moved to put a legal hold on the property before the new owners could take possession or make any changes. And this is the part where I have to be honest. I was the one who told the lawyer about the paperwork, the stack of documents my dad had been bringing over, disguised among bills. That detail is what turned this from a family misunderstanding into a documented pattern of deception. Because it wasn't one bad decision. It was months of quiet, deliberate groundwork. My dad found out the case had been filed the same day a locksmith showed up at his front door, not to lock him out, but because the attorney's office had sent notice that legal action was underway. And in a panic, my father actually thought someone was coming to seize his property. That's how deep the fear ran once he realized this wasn't going to just quietly go away. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this got wrapped up in a neat bow, because real life doesn't work that way, and honestly, some of this is still working through the legal system. What I can tell you is this. The sale is currently under review. The new owners have not been able to take possession, and Rosa is still living in her house tonight, exactly where she's lived for 41 years. My relationship with my parents is not okay. I don't know if it will be for a long time. My dad has tried to frame this as him trying to do what's best for her. And honestly, that might even be a version of the truth he's told himself so many times he believes it. But intention doesn't erase what he actually did. He deceived a real estate agent, deceived buyers, and most importantly, he deceived his own mother, a woman who trusted him completely, to take something that was hers. My mom hasn't said much. I think she knows there's no good explanation. And Rosa's doing okay. Better than okay, actually. She still does bingo on Wednesdays. The lemon tree is still producing. And she told me something recently that I think about a lot. I'm not angry that I'm old. I'm angry that they thought being old meant I stopped being me. If there's one thing I want you to take from this video, it's this. A power of attorney is not a blank check, and age is not a legal justification for taking something from someone without their knowledge. If you have an aging parent or grandparent, go check who has power of attorney over their affairs right now, and go check what conditions are actually written into that document. You might be surprised what you find. If this story kept you hooked, I'm currently working on the follow-up video, what actually happened in court, and whether my father is facing charges. That video is dropping soon, so make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications because you do not want to miss how this ends. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Every story has two sides, and I want to hear yours. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you love true stories, mysteries, and unbelievable real-life events, subscribe and join our growing community. There's a new story waiting for you in the next video. Thanks for watching.